Nerds?
Nerds.
Nerds! What is a nerd?
Average age of your customer is?
Truthfully, somewhere between 25 and 45. Adults that have grown up forming opinions about what they want to spend their money on are the ones that come to the store knowing that they want to spend money. Largely as much as kids want a huge amount of media, fiction, games, whatever. They don't have money of their own, first of all. They gotta spend somebody else's. And that means that they either have to have a lot of disposable income in their family. Kids want to read. But with that said, I think it's much more difficult to look at all of the shelves of product and kind of figure out what it is you do. It just takes time.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids that we do see over years. Not one year.
Right.
But yeah, overwhelmingly, the demographic you read online is, is pretty truthful. However, the male-female mix is probably a lot more interesting than people.
Do you say it's pretty even as far as male and females go, or?
Yeah, I mean, the metrics show up as somewhere between 40 and 45% female, and it bears out here all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Not just couples. Like, a lot of people say, girls with their guy friend. Not exclusively whatsoever.
Yeah. Similarly, read comics. Yeah, I would assume so.
A great deal.
Yeah.
A great deal. For a long time.
For a long time. Like, about how old would you say you were when you started reading? 3.
I knew when I was 3 I was going to make comics, as part of my life.
Yeah. Do you make comics?
I make comics. I'm an artist, but I'm not publishing.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
Writer and artist.
Right.
But,
are any of these yours?
No. This is actually a good friend of ours, Alex Ekman, who's also a comic artist. Who's local. He and several other people that are part of the same arts collective became friends of ours when we moved into this location back in the beginning of 2010.
Oh, getting back to your personal experience with comics, what would you say you started reading, started out with?
I actually had a weird comic book experience. I'm an only child, and I grew up in Brooklyn.
Oh,
so I grew up in Brooklyn in the 80s, which was a dynamically bizarre time. And for all of the people that live in New York, there are a handful of good shops, but they come in. The smaller ones come and they go. So when I was a kid, there wasn't a big comic shop near me, and I remember very, very, very particularly when I was maybe 8 years old, a couple opened this awesome tiny little shop in downtown Brooklyn, and nobody ever went there. I mean, nobody went there. I went there all the time, and I was this little kid. And these ladies fell in love with me. They wanted to show me everything that was there, and they increased all of my knowledge about what different types of mainstream stuff was coming out, what genres meant. I mean, they talked to me about very mature concepts in a way that I could understand as an 8-year-old. And I was engaging with them all the time. And I didn't have any money, Andre. I wasn't spending money. I'd literally go to the shop, and then I'd go to the bodega, and they'd have a refrigerator box on the floor full of throwaway comics that were all $1 a piece. So I'd go to the comic shop, find out what I liked, and I'd go to the bodega and I'd buy a handful of this stuff instead of going to the video game arcade. And those two things in Brooklyn at that time, I had a huge availability of independent 80s stuff that kids probably shouldn't be reading.
Right.
Mature stuff. I read all of my superheroes religiously, and I drew them all. But I also got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when it first started, and Tank Girl when it first started.
Oh yeah, Tank Girl.
I had weird stuff when I was I think it grew my appreciation for more different types of things.
And what do you say, when someone comes in here, for the first time, do you have any, go-to recommendations, or does it really just depend on, the person?
A couple of the things are, we've been open for a very long time, but we also have probably a more diverse customer base than most shops do, even in a major metropolitan area. And as a result, we've kind of formed an entire sales aesthetic around just figuring out exactly what it is that someone wants, even if they don't really know themselves. Just helping them understand the diversity of what's available to them without making it intimidating.
Right.
And so yeah, we have go-to recommendations. Like for example, our business card is a bookmark, and on the one side is all our recommended graphic novels of the given 3 months. We sell lots of those books by hand-to-hand transactions and just recommendations. But it's easier to get people that aren't comic fans into non-continuity, non-superhero stuff.
Yeah.
But every now and again, there's even an exception to that rule. Every now and again, there's something like Hawkeye or Daredevil that you could read without ever having read any Marvel books.
Say like the average age of customers of a customer would be like as long as you've worked here. Like, what do you think?
I would say people that come through, it's just a lot of it isn't just kids. There's a lot more adults than you would expect. I've seen more adults, maybe probably between 20 and 40 than teenagers. A lot of them are like between 20 and 40. On a busy day, it's like probably more of a mix of all ages, you know.
Like you said, you're new here. Like, what drew you to be to work here?
Well, I am actually a musician, and I'm not an avid. I haven't been an avid comic book reader. You know, but I did grow up with. I've watched movies, just like, comics aren't just comics. There's pop culture involved in all of it. Everything in the story is pop culture. It's in movies, it's in TV shows, it's in music, it's everywhere. It doesn't have to pertain to geeks or nerds. It also expands into other groups of people too. Anyone can come in here and find something they like. So I came in, however long ago, and talked to Joe, and I told him, I grew up on, some nerdy things that the typical person doesn't. I went to my local comic shop, for a little part of my youth, but not avidly and not regularly for years, like there are people who do. The typical geek, but that's what drew me to pop culture. I have a universal palette of anything to do with fantasy, sci-fi, anything that suggests hope or a bright future, So that's why I work here, and I think that's why Joe and I
The stereotypical idea or like visual idea of a comic store employee, I think one of the things, just to be three-dimensional about the conversation, the interesting thing is that a lot of times in any subculture, there's designed over time this kind of the clubhouse mentality that there's got to be a bar for entry. And the bar for entry isn't because you don't want other people into your group. It's that you want to be able to be the gatekeeper for what is required to come into the group. So that you can keep it exclusive. So you can feel like, this is my thing. The problem with that, the biggest problem with that is it doesn't actually help anyone. The fan doesn't get helped either. And the comics medium for a long time was stuck in being all about fans and not about comics. I think things like all of the comic movies being made and all of the merchandising that's being done and TV shows having an ability to look to comics for intellectual property, that's like opening it up a huge amount, but it makes the bar of entry, it has to disappear. If I don't actively want you to know about all the things I think are awesome, I can't have better comics,
Exactly.
So, yeah, there's no such thing.